Editing world-class real estate videos can feel like a daunting and complicated task. In this video, I'm going to share with you 6 editing tips that will take your editing skills from good to great without having to rely on outsourcing your edits, as well as speeding up your editing workflow. Starting off with tip number 1, and that is to utilize keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts are the fastest way to make your editing process more efficient and speed up your workflow. When you're editing your own real estate videos, time is crucial. If you're spending any longer than like 5 hours max on an edit, you've got a problem. A typical edit takes me roughly 2 hours, while on a bigger project, I'll spend max 4 hours on that edit. Now, instead of having to make every adjustment manually, coming out of my editing flow, using my mouse to make an edit or find a tool or make a cut, whatever that may be, I can use these shortcuts to stay locked in to my editing flow. If you want to know exactly what keyboard shortcuts I use, you're in luck, because in the description, I've got a downloadable file that you can import straight into Final Cut Pro, which will give you instant access to my keyboard shortcuts. Now, this feeds right into tip number 2, which is to create a process. I used to waste so much time editing simply because I didn't stick to a process. I would edit certain sections and jump around and then maybe do some effects and then maybe color grade these shots and then go back to the section I was working on earlier, and all of that, it killed me. It took up so much time. Once I created and stuck to a routine process, my editing time dropped like crazy. I've made a complete video on my entire editing workflow, which you can watch right up here, but here's an abbreviated version. The first thing that I do is the selects process. This is selecting which clips I want to use and the best parts of those clips. Once I've got that done, then I go and I pick the song. I pick the music I'm going to use. Now, I do this after the selects because now I've gone through the footage. I know what the property's like. I know what the vibe is. That helps me as a guide for the type of music that I'm going to be selecting. Once I've got my song picked out and I've got it cut up to the way that I want it to flow, this is when I do my sequencing. Sequencing is just building up the timeline and putting the clips in the order that I want them to flow. Now, I do the sequencing to completion before I touch anything else. This keeps me focused and streamlined. Once the base is built and the sequencing is completed, then I do my color grading, then the effects and transitions, and finally the sound design. When you break your editing workflow into segments, this helps so much with mental clarity and just overall project organization. Tip 3 is to prioritize pacing over effects. Pacing is how your video flows. It's how your video feels. And no amount of transitions or flashy editing tricks is going to be able to save or replace bad pacing. I've seen so many videos recently where I'm done watching the video and I'm sitting there like, what did I just watch? Like, I can't even process what I just saw, and that's not a good thing. And I've also seen my fair share of videos that's like where you're a minute in and you're still in the foyer. Both of those are examples of bad pacing. Pacing is something that a regular viewer is going to subconsciously pick up on. Now, tip 4 actually goes hand in hand with pacing, and that is editing to the music. I'm of the opinion or perspective that I'm not just creating videos. I'm crafting a viewing experience. And so it's my job as a creative to keep that viewing experience dialed into emotion and literally making it easy for the viewer to sit back and enjoy and just watch the video with no distraction. When visuals and audio match, when they sync, it bonds into our subconscious. If you're not editing to the beat and the rhythm of the music, our brains, they can't get in sync with what's being played in front of us. So you should always, no matter what, always be editing to the beat of the music. Now, on a more advanced level, you can edit to the rhythm of the music. That's how the song is flowing. Typically follows like instruments or melodies, and being able to switch between editing from the beat and the rhythm in the same video creates this dynamic sense of unity in your videos. Now, capping off the audio related tips, tip number 5 is your sound design. Again, tapping into the theme of creating a viewing experience, sound design is a great way to audibly and subconsciously capture and recapture the viewer's attention. The key to really good sound design is to use it subtly and tastefully. So my sound design process is twofold. Number one is creating the sounds that match the visuals, right? Are we hearing what we're seeing? So if we're outside, maybe we're hearing wind gusts, birds chirping, or a pool, we're playing pool, you hear the balls break, or pouring a glass of wine, you can hear that liquid pouring into the glass. Those are things that we see that we would subconsciously already expect to hear. Now, the second step to that are sounds that we don't see visually, but they're still there to enhance the viewing experience. Sounds like risers to build up, intensity and anticipation, as well as hits to kind of give you that big payoff, whooshes to keep up with the flow of the video. These are things that you don't see, but when they're there, it's gonna draw you in. Sound design is something that a lot of new videographers overlook. So if you wanna separate yourself from the noise, pun intended, sound design is a great avenue to do so. Moving on to tip number 6, we're talking about white balance. Nothing makes a real estate video look amateur like having yellow walls. When color grading, it's important to keep the integrity of the colors in that home intact and that they're reflected accurately. A lot of homes have either white walls, white cabinetry, white countertops, and having the wrong white balance can easily affect the color of said objects. Now, white balance is kind of 50% shooting and 50% editing. Now, when I'm shooting, I have my camera set to auto white balance, and on Canons, you can set it to white priority. And I find that does a pretty good job. I don't really have to worry about white balance too much when I'm shooting. But there are occasions when it doesn't work out the way that I want it to. And so here is a super simple editing hack that will get you those perfect whites. No matter what editing software you use, you can use this method. Go to your color curves, select your eyedropper tool, and then click on the area that you want to adjust. Typically that would be, if the wall was yellow, you'd click on the yellow wall, and that's gonna give you the correct hue and luminosity to correct. Then make a point on that curve and drag down until you've reached your desired look. Simple as that. If you found these editing tips valuable, but you still want more, right here is a video where I edited a luxury real estate video from start to finish. With that all said, I will see you in the next video.